Journeys Ahead, Beyond Trilogy, Part 2, Chapter 3, Not So Different. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. Entering their home, both T and his wife kindly gestured for their reflections to come inside. With gentle steps, the Novason family found themselves entering into one of the most cozy environments they had ever seen. Before them rested wooden floors with fuzzy carpets being stationed around the living room. These layers of softness expanded outwards near the back, going alongside the halls that led into other rooms. A beautiful duo set of sofas beside a coffee table rested in the middle of the living room as well, that was accompanied by a strange antler chandelier dangling above in a golden haze. A fireplace had also been lit into a warm light against the wall that was daubed in pictures and strange decorations. For a first impression, the Novasons were rather pleasantly surprised. Please, make yourselves at home. If you think about it, this house is kinda yours as well by technicality. He explained as he turned and raised his arms up into the air, trying to lighten the mood for his weary guests. Just be sure to wipe the mud off your boots before entering, please. Asked the spectral Jida, who turned and immediately fell still, seeing that the Novasons had all entered, dragging mud with them. Never mind. Don't worry about it, she said, before suddenly turning and phasing through one of the walls. Spreading out, Void and his girls found themselves in a curious mindset and went to explore the strange reflection of their family home. Odd yellow lights bloomed above their heads, looking to be a mixture of both plants and technology. In fact, it was kind of the whole vibe of the home's smaller items. Everything looked almost homemade, scraps and parts, reconstructed in the strange yet familiar devices. Above the fireplace was a holographic TV screen that showed off a strange version of tennis, being projected by a light bulb connected to a motherboard and glowing blue mushroom. All around upon the tables and sides were just tons of strange little machines, some looking unfinished, while others were more or less complete. One of these being a toaster with tiny mechanical legs that just walked around the house. Eyeing it and then reaching down, Povnu picked the strange device up and eyed it with a curious stare, before simply putting it back down and watching it clank into a wall, falling over on its side and all. You an inventor? Void curiously asked, as he picked up a box that had yellow and black striped caution tape upon it. Indeed I am, friend. As long as I could remember, I've always had a knack for creating stuff. Sometimes they can be small, other times they can be... Oh boy, hold on, T said, as he approached and took the box from Void's hands. Don't touch this. This is very dangerous, he finished, before turning and putting it off to the side. And odd. Remember when you managed to turn that cow blue back on Earth? The spectral Jida asked, as she reappeared, while now being filled to the brim with water. Plopping down, the specter turned herself into a puddle of muck and began to absorb and clean the mud, soaking it up into herself before returning to normal and dissolving the water into a spectral energy. I'll tell you one thing, love. Your mind never fails to surprise me, T's wife stated with a small smirk, as she then gently levitated over to her reflection, who was eyeing a wall of photos. On them were images of a younger T and Jida, with several people she didn't recognize. Others were of those she did know. Tucker Sarv, along with a strange red knock, as well as different versions of Joby, along with two other kids that she didn't recognize. One of these were a yellow orb spark looking being, and the other a red-skinned girl with bright white hair and glistening eyes. So, what's your J, Joby, and Jane like? Asked the Spectre, getting Jida's attention. Oh, well, they're... Wait, Jane? She questioned, leaving the ghost to smirk in an awkward realization. Oh, never mind. We'll discuss stuff like that later. Could I grab you a drink or something, dear? Blinking in a confused state, Jida glanced from her reflection, and then the void, and then to her stomach, and then back looking rather baffled to the Spectre's enjoyment. Sure. Thank you, she said, while Joby began to explore the kitchen, taking notice of a jet reflection that was hard at work with some pasta. Oh, hello, she greeted, causing the robot to turn and smile with a blue-screen face. This jet was fairly similar to the one that they had now been trying to desperately repair. His differences were that he was bulkier, taller, with a spark crest consisting of reds, light purples, and yellows as a color scheme. He even had 2 fins at each side of his screened head, being one of the more discernible details from the other. Greetings, lass. Welcome to the Matter Realm. Been a long time since I've seen... Scanning. Seen a reflection. Let alone one of my niece, no less. The robot greeted as he swiftly turned back to the pasta at hand. Niece? Alright. Cool, Joby awkwardly said, as she then turned to the sound of something rattling. Looking off to the kitchen wall, Joby could see what appeared to be a sealed trash can, rattling and shaking with audible grunts and groans escaping its seams. Blinking in curiosity, the light matter girl slowly approached, wondering if some kind of pet was inside. As she did this, the 2 Jidas entered the kitchen to see what she was doing. But in response, the Spectre's eyes widened while bellowing out a quick, "Wait, sweetie, no!" However, it was too late. As Joby opened the lid, she was instantly met with the sight of a blue, snotball-looking ghost exploding out of the trash. With large, goofy yellow eyes, the strange spirit chewed upon an old pizza slice while staring Joby down in the process. Yelping and stumbling back, she watched as the glob of a spirit chuckled, slurped down its food, and then returned back to the trash, getting everyone's attention within the short 5 seconds it happened. God, what's with all the ghost stuff here? Joby asked as the 2 Jidas helped her back upon her feet. Apologies, young one. I'm actually an avid paranormal researcher, hence why you've probably more than likely encountered some oddities on your travels here, he explained as both him and Void approached the kitchen. That there was a spirit I dub as Bluebers. His name is actually Blueberry. He's an ass, but he's harmless, the Matterbirth explained, while Pawfnoo slowly approached, holding a chunky handled device in her hand that was both beeping and whizzing like a metal detector. That explains the dinosaur then, she stated, before turning the weird device off and setting it upon the countertop. Oh, Trixie. Yeah, she's sort of Bournemouth's watcher. Apologies if she startled you. T apologized as Jet began to prepare the food. Dinner's done. Come, sit. Let us not waste any more time. Please, do tell us what's going on. T gestured as they all began to take their seats at a clean and pretty-looking redwood table. Resting down, Void and Jida sat at one end of the table, while T and his Jida sat at the other. Within the left-hand middle side, Joby and Pawfnoo rested as Jet approached and gave each one of them their own plate of spaghetti. Enjoy, friends, or I am off to meet my tractor. Please do have a pleasant evening, said the robot as he swiftly turned and then left the home, leaving just the Novasuns and Reflections to discuss. Looking down at their food, everyone took in the sight of glowing blue noodles with a white shimmering sauce that at first looked off, but actually smelled quite delicious. Taking a fork from his plate's side, Void leaned down and tangled a strand to its metal spikes and took a bite. Being pleasantly surprised, the Spark nodded in approval and seeing the others begin to dig in, genuinely enjoying the alternative version of his favorite dish. Wow. Look, as much as I want to compliment this meal, there's more important things at hand. Things that have led us to you, Void explained as he gestured the tea across the table. Please, explain, Novasun. It's not every day an alternative version of yourself comes knocking in for aid. I'm all ear holes, the Matterbirth replied as he crossed his hands on the table and sat in an upright, polite, and listening manner. Thinking for a moment, Void tried to find his words as his Jida raised her hand up and interlocked it with his upon the table. The musician looked to hold back tears as she too began to think on what to say, only pushing Void forward to do the talking. It's a situation involving our son, Jay. The spark revealed to both T's and his Jida's sudden surprise. Their calm faces looked to drop in a stunned look as T repeated the boy's name in a concerned manner. Jay? He asked, leading Void to nod. Yes. 2 years ago, a sin from my past re-entered my life. The leader of a species of monsters called the Glitched. Monsters that destroyed my Savaheim. Void explained to the sudden shocked and curious stares of both T and his Jida. In the past, me and Jida stopped the Glitch King, Lotus, and for years, we kept what was left of him to be out of reach of danger. But little did we know that he was silently waiting to strike as a harmless artifact. Void went on as he closed his eyes in regret. The glitches you see, if you don't know what they are yet, they're beings that were never meant to actually exist. They're monsters born from the errors and the structure of the Omniverse. Void lectured as he projected a hologram of the monsters from his spark's crest. You see, my son Jay, he was never meant to be born. Void went on as he looked into Jida's eyes. Me and my wife here are from opposite worlds, so in turn, our boy was born as a being that wasn't supposed to exist. A glitch. And I stupidly never told my son about the monsters. Void went on as the hologram turned into a happy image of Jay while eyeing the reflections, who just looked with respectful yet intrigued stares. Because of Jay's birth, Lotus, or what was left of him, was able to reawaken to his energy, and then he coaxed my son into resurrecting his full form. He trapped us in his world, murdered his best friend. After this, our little Jay, using his unnatural powers, he fought back and trapped both Lotus as well as himself into, well, Void stated as the hologram showed off Jay's final moments. As the scene finished, he pulled out Odin's book and opened it to the passage that brought them there. Placing it on the table, the spark slid over to the reflections, who quickly took a look at it. You see, Jay is special. Because of all of his combined abilities, from me, Jida, as well as other glitched, he was gifted with the ability to go beyond reality itself. Void explained as T read the passage. You're Jay. He trapped himself in the unreachable. T asked as he scratched his beard in deep thought. Yes. We've been searching for the last 2 years for something, anything on how to breach that veil. This book, this spell between reflections, Void went on as he and Jida began to both shake and tear up. He's everything to us. He's out there and we just want to bring him home. For a long moment, both T and his Jida were silent before the Matterberg said something that sparked the Novasun family's attention. RJ was lost once. Not to this extent, but this pain, this fear. We know it well. Looking up, both Void and Jida eyed the older beings who stood from their seats with T having the book in hand. You have searched me out in order to enact this transport to a place where only dreams can be held, he said before looking at his wife. An old friend of mine once told me about the Beyond's existence, but never had I imagined ever going to such a mystery. Turning back around, T approached the depressed couple with the most welcoming and understanding eyes they had ever seen. My friends, let me read more into this passage you have given to me. If it brings you any comfort, We will most certainly aid you in helping find your son, if possible. Perking up, both Void and Jida stood in awe of this reflection's immediate empathy. Are you serious? Asked Spark, as the Matterbirth reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder. When my Jay was taken, I stopped at nothing until I got him home. The look in your eyes, Novason, that fire, it's the same as I had almost 30 years ago now. T explained as his Jida approached and placed her hands upon the living Jida's shoulders. Now I know it seems silly to just agree on your terms, but we're not the folks to just turn down someone in need of help. You've all traveled far for us, so let us help you in any way possible. T finished before nodding and taking a step back. You're actually gonna help us? Jida asked with a stunned soul as she looked into her reflection's glowing white oval eyes. Well, yes. Believe us. We know what you two are feeling. We know. The ghost replied as the Matterbirth turned and approached a ladder near the back side of the wall that led up to the roof. T, where are you going? Joby asked as the Void variant began to ascend its wooden form. To get a good read on the scripture, maybe even form a plan while I'm at it. You all continue to eat. I'll return soon, he said before disappearing from view. I can't believe this. Thank you. Truly, Void expressed ingratitude towards Jida's reflection, who just nodded in response. You don't need to thank us, Void. When RJ was taken, he was the most determined I had ever seen him since the Great Matter War. Whenever it comes to family, he's always on top of his game. She explained with a sense of grace in her voice that kept Void and his Jida intrigued to their compassionate yet mysterious counterparts. And I guess on a side note, to avoid possible future communication confusion, you can just refer to me as Tiger, said Jida's reflection, who swiftly turned back towards her dinner plate. Tiger? That's a cool nickname. How'd you get it? Joby asked as she ate away at her pasta beside Pofnu's quiet yet listening soul. During the war, we had codenames. As the general of the rebel dyads, mine was tagged as Tiger for secret underground missions. The reflection revealed who now be referred to as Tiger from here on out. Whoa. Tiger, if it's okay, I'd actually like to learn more about this war you speak of. Just something to ease my head of it all. I'm quite curious to hear where you come from. Jida asked as she sat back down as well. With a smile, Tiger relaxed and got ready to tell the tale to the three Novason girls. Void, however, wanted to discuss other things. Turning, he made his way towards the home ladder and ascended, wishing to talk to his reflection some more. Stories of war could wait, is what he told himself, before exiting onto the roof. Stepping out upon a flat top, Void was greeted to the now darker blue and purple aurora borealis skies that shimmered with 3 moons above, one of which looked to have been shattered apart many years back. Hundreds of white shooting stars soared across the cosmos above his head, creating a spectacle that Void would never forget. T. Savaheim was truly a beautiful one, he thought, more vibrant and fantastical than the Spark's own. In a way, he was honored to have gotten to see it. Narrowing his sight back down, Void caught the view of T sitting at the front edge of his home's top in a slouched manner. Being in a crisscross applesauce position, he looked to have been closely reading the crusted pages of myth, even using a built-in blowtorch hand for a light source. Furrowing his brow and intaking a breath, Void slowly approached his reflection and then stood behind him for a few moments, contemplating on just what to say. You'd truly help us. Just like that? Void asked again, still feeling gobsmacked about how kind and generous his reflection had been about the whole thing. Well, I have been known to be a bit too trusting with folks. Are you suggesting that we pull back on the idea? T inquired, as he looked over his shoulder with an eyebrow-raised smile. What? No, it's just... Normally I'm put through the ringer first before getting any semblance of help. Void replied, as he approached and sat next to his reflection. Together, the two of them just looked up to the stars, and simply began to just talk. I know I brushed by it downstairs, but these last 2 years have truthfully been the worst of my life. My son, he's me and Jaida's entire world. With him gone, it's like a big chunk of our lives went with him. Void explained as he watched the whizzing white lights dance through the stars above, looking to open his mind and speak from the heart. We came here on a whim, a hope to try, unaware of what we would encounter. So to just be so suddenly sided with, it... Void stated, before T sparked up his own side of the story. As I said earlier, my Jay was taken around 30 years ago. He was merely a baby when it happened. T began as he projected a hologram image of a yellow spark-looking being. It was around Christmas time when a red spirit lady barged into my home and kidnapped my boy for power. Me and Joby, along with some others, tracked her here, to this world. One that I thought to have died had been reborn over the years spent gone. T went on as he displayed a map of the entirety of Salvaheim that looked to have been divided up into several sectors. Destroyed by the Matter War? Void questioned, causing T to stop for a moment in thought. You could say it was the domino effect, but yes. After several other adventures post-war, I took refuge on Earth with some old friends. I ran a little farm home for a few years, making money off my inventions, up until Jay was taken, leading my whole group on one large adventure. T revealed as he smiled towards the stars. Brace yourself, because the next thing I knew, I learned that the Red Spirit was actually my unknowingly existing daughter, one that died with Jaida and was resurrected through spiritual means without me even realizing it. She wanted to get back at me for never noticing her, and really wanted to turn the world that forgot her into her own image. It was a crazy, crazy ordeal, man. The Matterbirth continued, causing Void to shake his head in surprise. That's... he stated, now wondering if perhaps both him and Jaida would have a daughter one day. Yeah, I know, a bit much. But if I were to go on, we'd be here for hours. But in the end, I managed to reunite with Jaida's spirit, and together, we were able to not only save Jay, but my daughter as well. T revealed as he showed off a large family photo of him, his Jaida, Jay, Joby, along with the mysterious red soul by the name of Jane. I soon returned to my position as the Matterbirth of Salvaheim, and went on a very successful mission in bringing other matter beings back to this world. Since then, me and Jaida settled down, our kids went on their own adventures, and we now just peacefully live here till the end of time, I guess. Listen, what I'm trying to say is that we don't want history to repeat upon you and your wife in a darker way. T finished as he handed the book back to Void. I'm not sure how kind the other reflections could be, but just know that we have your back on this one, kid. You should consider yourself very lucky for stumbling into our little world. Looking from the book and then back to T, Void nodded his head while pocketing the old novel, now wondering on what to say next. Thank you, truly. Void stated, to T's respectful honor, before asking a question. If you don't mind me asking, what exactly is a Matterbirth? Adjusting himself, T glanced from Void and then to the skies again, as he went on to explain. Matter births are demigods who control the flow of both light and dark matter. I'm supposed to keep both sides within a stable level throughout the omniverse. For without my influence, one side could overtake the other, in turn bringing chaos to all the lands. I actually broke the balance once, but over time I just rekindled it and managed things to the best of my ability. Think of it as me keeping nature in check to simplify things. T revealed the Void's surprise before swiftly asking, "What about you, Nova-san? What's your whole deal?" Smirking, Void propped his left leg up and gazed down to the beauty of Bournemouth, now thinking about what he was going to say. "Well, I'm no demigod, but I am a spark, one of the last members of a species that vowed to protect the grand omniverse from danger. It's not as crazy sounding as your role, but that's who I am, as one would say." Nodding to this, T looked off to the side in gentle thought, before Void returned with another question. "If you don't mind me asking, how did you meet your Jida? I met mine by crashing into her world while hunting a glitch. How about you?" Void asked, leaving T to chuckle. "Well, way back then, when I was crashing in a mall with some other powerful friends, I discovered what I was by looking through an old memory bank in my mechanical body. With that knowledge, I located and traveled here to figure out who I was, only to find Salvaheim, back then called the Matter Realm, in the middle of a freaking war." T shouted with a raised arm and wide eyes before continuing. "The next thing I knew, I was being attacked by a large dog made of dark matter, but before I was on the brink of death, she came to my rescue. She took me in, taught me how to fight, to love, to be brave. When she died, I carried her legacy to the war's end, and up till we reunited in the spirit realm many years later when I was searching for Jay. She's my everything. I wouldn't be the same without her." T rambled, the Void's shocked yet hopeful surprise, seeing that his reflection actually sounded happy in his words. "Here's another question for you. Do you have a core? And if so, was he a jackass tyrant?" T asked, causing Void to snort a little. I did, but he was... Well, let's just say he had a noble cause that would have ended my newfound home and many others if he were to complete it. Not really a tyrant, but definitely a jackass. All up till he sacrificed himself to save everyone." Void replied in a now saddened and memorable tone, leaving T the nod once more. "Well, at least you didn't say he turned into a giant sunset that would have doomed the entirety of the world. But I'm sorry for your loss, Nova-san. Truly." For a moment, the two of them decided on what to ask next. They both had questions, tons of questions that they really wanted to get out. In a way, they felt like a pair of long-lost siblings. Although different, the two of them couldn't help but feel happy around the other, like a lost best friend that you just click with instantly after several years apart. "Tell me about your kids. What are they like?" Void curiously inquired. "Oh, they're wonderful. Joby was my first. She was created from my DNA in a lab without my permission, and a little bit later, I was able to rescue her from the government. She's kind, sweet, and grew into a very adventurous woman. Both her and her wife are now like Tomb Raiders, artifact hunters. Really cool shit, honestly. I kinda wish she was here to meet you." Rambled T, causing Void to tilt his head. "Wait, your Joby isn't your niece?" he asked, leaving T the tilt as well. "Your Joby is?" For a moment, the two just stared awkwardly before brushing it off as reflective differences. "Anyways, my Jay is just a bombastic boy. He's in his early 30s now, but he hasn't lost the spirit for adventure. He travels between realities, helping those he can, sort of like a Robin Hood-like figure for those in need." T went on until talking about the child Void was most curious about. "As for my daughter, Jane, She was a struggle at first, but there is a lot of Jida within her. The two of them are almost one-to-one outside of appearance. After adjusting, we found out that she had a really good heart and a fighter's soul. She lives in a woodland reality now, but visits at least once a month. What about yours? I'm quite curious. T asks back, leaving Void the smile. Outside of Jay, both Joby and Pofnu are adopted. You see, Joby from my world is actually my core's daughter. She was made from his DNA and, truthfully, not treated well. When shit hit the fan, I took her in, and we've become more like a father and daughter duo as opposed to uncle and niece. She's very daredevil in nature, but as of late, her softer side has begun to show. She's truly a sweetheart. Void babbled with proud love for its little girl, before moving on to the next. Pofnu was actually my first. I rescued her from a glitch-infested world, and over time, she grew into the Kitsune warrior we all know and love. She's very sweet, but man, can she be a badass when provoked. Void said with proud papa words, before moving on to Jay. As for my son, he's the best of all of us. He has so much life and wonder in his eyes, a desire to do the right thing. He cares about others more than himself. That's why Void stated, before looking up to the stars. He didn't deserve to be granted that fate. He didn't deserve to be a pawn to the devil's game. He deserves to live his life. He deserves to be happy. He deserves to be brought home. Seeing his reflection's eyes beginning the well of tears, T reached his hand out and gently rested it upon Void's shoulder. Turning, the spark locked his eyes with T's, who were now stern and confident. It was the look of someone who cared, someone who was a leader, a veteran, the stare of honor and loss. He will. Me and my wife will stand by your side, Nova-san. You can count on that. With a tiny and thankful smile, Void returned his gaze upon the stars with T at his side, feeling a wave of ease rushing down his back. We will depart in the morning. You will lead. I recommend you and your family get some sleep. T stated, leaving Void to just nod, but continue to look upwards with a newfound sense of hope. Although having suggested rest, both Void and T stayed on that roof for a long while more. Together, they both discussed their lives, their similarities, their differences, their triumphs and losses. In an odd way, it was like talking to a mirror that could respond on both sides. The more Void got to know T, the more he realized just how similar he was to himself. Someone who was stubborn and just wanted to help others. Although different in many ways, he really was just an older and happier version of himself with a stunning beard. Soon enough, though, the two of them returned downstairs to a darkened room, where Void was pointed down the hall towards a faint glowing door. Bidding their goodnights, the two went off in their own directions within the home, leaving Void to approach the door, turn its knob, and enter. As the wooden plaque opened with a squeak, he was greeted to a small room that looked to be a spare storage area. Having blank wooden walls along with basic drawers and empty shelves, the old room looked rather dead. Except for one thing. Sitting on the bed, now wearing a green tank top and dark black shorts, was Jida, playing her guitar with a faint glow emanating from her hair. Hey, she said, while glancing up and making Void smile towards her words. Hey, greeted the spark as he shut the door behind himself and then proceeded to sit on the bed beside his wife. How'd your self-talk go? You two were up there for like 2 hours at most. Jida asked, while continuing to play a comforting tune from her orange-tinted instrument. It was a surreal experience. We're so alike, but not at the same time. But I'm happy to say that we've got a pair of allies on helping find Jay. Void answered as he rested a hand upon Jaida's shoulder. Looking down to his arm, he cut the communication line with Nock, who was most certainly asleep and likely back at Cots. For now, he just wanted some well-needed alone time with his wife, time that they hadn't been able to share for a little over a year. How about you? What was it like learning more about Tiger? Void asked, leaving Jaida to gently tilt her head with a sense of oddness in her eyes. Well, she's a fighter, all right. Very different and, well, she apparently died by getting stabbed through her heart by this world's Atlas, no less. Jaida explained the Void's shock. Oh, that's... he said, however, unable to really say anything else as a response. Scary. Yeah. He's dead in this world, though, if that brings any sort of comfort. Jaida slowed her words as her fingers licked the twitch. Sorry if I'm acting strange. It's just eerie seeing a version of myself that, you know. Jaida explained with a sniffled breath, feeling unease at the fact that her counterpart was dead. Minus that detail, though. She's a sweet. Remind me of my own mother, actually, in some spots. But... Jaida went on before stopping to the sound and sight of her leftmost guitar string snapping and breaking. In response, her face scrunched up and instantly spilled with tears. Dropping the instrument, she slapped her hands upon her face, hunched forwards, and began to silently cry the Void's shocked dismay. Whoa! Freckles! Hey! He said before reaching out and pulling her into a hug. Sweetheart! Hey! It's okay. I'll fix it. Breathe. Void said in a comforting tone as his own tears began to swell. I'm sorry, Blue. I've just got so many things on my mind. Hopes, fears. It's like a big mess. I just feel like I'm going mad. Jaida worriedly said, as Void carefully reached his hands up and pulled hers away from her eyes. Oh, honey, look at me. He asked, as Jaida's hair changed its hues into a satin blue shade. It's okay. I understand. Believe me, I understand. It's gonna be okay. He lovingly expressed, while using his thumbs to wipe her blue glowed tears away. I just really miss him, Void. I miss our son. I just want to hold him again. He's alone with that monster and... The Cosmic Angel stated, as she slowly looked up, seeing Void's melting eyes as well. I do too, sweetheart. I do too. But for once, it seems that hope is on our side. Void hopefully exclaimed in his gentle voice as he then brushed aside of Jaida's hair. For the first time in forever, we have a chance. It's a small step, yes, but I believe he'll be home sooner rather than later. The spark went on as he then reached up and took out Jaida's headband, allowing for her hair to gently fall to her shoulders. You and I have been through so frickin' much since meeting. We've had our ups and downs, but we haven't lost our battles just yet. We're gonna bring him home. That's a fact. Void stated with confidence as he then leaned forward and kissed the side of Jaida's cheek. Hearing her husband's words of comfort, Jaida's hair turned from its blue shade back to an orange flare, remembering just how much he actually loved the spark. He was right. They had been through so much together, and have always come out on top each time. This would be no different, she told herself, while her soul began to ignite upon Void's presence. You always know what to say, huh? She asked while interlocking her eyes with his ocean blues. Well, I do try, replied the spark, as Jida's hair suddenly flared into a hot red pink that left Void a tad curious. That door's locked, right? She asked, causing Void to turn and scratch the back of his head. I mean, it's closed, yes, but I'm not sure about locked. Why do you ask? He inquired as he stared into his wife's burning hot eyes. Whatever, good enough, she stated before lunging forward, kissing Void smack dab on his lips, and with no time to react, she practically tackled the poor cyborg into the bed, solidifying that their night had come to a lovey-dovey type close. Shooting his eyes open, Void instantly sat up right from his bed, with Jida groggily doing the same at his side. From outside, the sound of a loud horn or trumpet rang out across the lands, leaving Void curious as to what had been happening. Blue. What's that? A boat or something? Jida asked as she snuggled into her husband's side, having been in a state of half awake and asleep. From outside the hall, Void could hear the muffled sounds of running and talking. Panicked talking. Freckles, put on your clothes. Something's happening, Void nervously stated as he quickly leapt to his feet, slipped on his boots, and exited the door, leaving a now awake Jida to look around in a confused state. Huh? What? She asked as the horn rang out again. Flapping out his cloaked sides, Void stumbled into the living room, but could see and then noticed everyone standing outside the front window's light. Guys? He asked in a slight panic while exiting through an already ajar front door. Appearing upon the hill's top, Void stood beside a concerned T and Tiger, alongside his two daughters, who had all been looking out over the land of Bournemouth that had been engulfed within a dust cloud of some sort. The front half of the town looked as though they had been bombed from a fiery purple blast that left several of the buildings burning. The flames had been so strong that a darkened smoke began to fill the land. The town both blared with a danger alert, while residents sounded the panic below. What the hell? Jada asked as she warped herself to be beside the others, while now being fully geared up and ready to go. T, what's going on down there? Pavnu asked with a point as both Tiger and the Matterberf stared onwards with concerned and angered eyes. I'm gonna go grab my gear, T stated as he swiftly turned and ran back into his home. We'll check it out first. Come on, Joby explained with an immediate response to help those below. Throwing her arm out, she activated a glowing yellow transport portal, one she quickly leapt through without a second remark. Be careful. We'll catch up shortly, stated Tiger in a concerned tone as she swiftly turned and went into the home as well. Without saying a word, Void, Jida, and Pavnu maneuvered forward and leapt through the portal too, re-emerging to the town center that had been engulfed within smoke. Activating their respective weapons, the Novasun family stood in readied stances as the Bournemouth townsfolk both appeared and disappeared within the surrounding ash, all in a panic. They all couldn't see much. They could most certainly hear running, screaming, and mushing. From certain angles, the Spark and his family could swear they heard the noise of wet splashing, swishing putty, or the mere noise of boots to mud, causing their ears to fluster in a disgusted response. Ugh, you guys hear that too? Jada asked as she ignited herself into a burning star-flamed hue. The sounds of mushing potatoes? Yeah, Joby replied, while transforming her hands into golden, glowing claws. Wait, I'm sensing something. Something that feels... Pofnu curiously stated, while radiating her Naginata and body into a spectral red haze. Familiar? Void finished, when from out of the smoke, leapt forwards a crab and scorpion slime monster fusion that pulsated with purple and red veins. Before anyone had time to react, the creature pounced on Void and sent him flying back. Before the others had time to react, several more of the creatures alongside more humanoid-looking ones came scrambling out of the fiery shadowed haze. Although different, everyone could sense and tell what they were. Dark matter creatures. Or perhaps... Ameliorites! Joby howled before beginning to take on several of them. Gruffing and catching the beast by its claws, Void deployed his battle mask and released a tiny pulse from his horns, blowing the monster apart off his body and allowing for him to stand back with a kick. Ugh, what in Matira's name? He shouted while activating his father's electrified spear. With the heat of a star coursing through her body, Jaida's skin turned into a flaming state of fury as she charged up. Taking off her string-broken guitar, she swung it around, yanked down her father's pick necklace, and strummed the now heated strings. Exploding outwards came a wave of fire that killed several of the monsters and returned them to mere muck. Bouncing off the roadside buildings, Pofnu both slashed and blasted out waves of condensed spectral energy that destroyed the creatures that were much taller and brutish than herself. At the fox's side, Joby fought more or less in a barbaric way. Like an animal, she clawed and punched, tore the monster's limbs off, and then used them as actual weapons against the others. In a way, she had been fighting through a slight panic attack. Seeing these familiar-looking creatures sent a real wave of anguish to her heart that only gave the feeling of hate. Again and again, she clashed her claws and even used her horns to spear one of the monsters down, all in a primal anguish towards these reflective-looking demons. Well, this is unexpected, Jaida stated, as both her and Void now fought side by side, fire with lightning, blue matched to orange. You can say that again, exclaimed the Spark, as he rammed his spear into the ground and created a shockwave upon what was a vastly growing number of monsters. Hey, not to worry you guys, but they aren't seeming to slow in numbers, Pofnu worriedly called, as more and more reflective ameliorites began to emerge from the smoke, leaving everyone to stand strong. What the hell? Who brought them here? What's happening? Joby asked, as both her and Pofnu stood back to back with their parents. Together, they fought in an X formation, while slowly being surrounded and outnumbered by a small horde of the monsters. Wish I could tell you, Sweet Pea, Void replied as he opened his chest and unleashed a wave of rockets upon the monsters. There's a lot, Jaida worriedly said while blasting star shards from her fists that only faltered the beasts in their stride. Not good. Not good at all, Pofnu worriedly evaluated as the ameliorites began to slowly regenerate their bodies, showing that not only were they stronger than cores, but more deadly. Scrap! Scrap! Void continued to shout with concern as he prepared to open a portal beneath everyone's feet. However, before he could, something else suddenly came from the fog. Whizzing through the air came a large, spinning, burning-bladed battle axe. Being surrounded with a blue energy, the weapon never actually hit the ground. Rather, it continued to spin at a sideways angle and cleave itself right through the monsters, going all the way around them in a circular shape, before boomeranging back into the smoke. Turning their heads, the Novasun family could hear several more of the monsters approaching from behind. Yet, they were now focused upon where the axe had come from. What the? Void questioned, when suddenly, the most bizarre yet amazing sight appeared before their eyes. Breaking through the smoke line appeared the Tyrannosaurus Rex, Trixie, with both T and Tiger riding upon her back. The Matterbirth was now equipped with a brown and turquoise chest buckle that sashed over his left shoulder, while a conch shell and strange canister of red liquid dangled at his left hip side. Tiger now looked akin to a burning flame. Her legs had morphed into a spirit's tail, while her face scrunched with fury. Releasing a whistle from his mouth, T raised his burning axe forwards, which led Trixie leaping upwards and above the Novasuns, who all watched in shock. With a roar, she landed and crushed several of the ameliorites below her feet, while also snapping her jaws down upon a few. As her head swayed downwards, both T and Tiger leapt off her back and instantly showed the Novasun family what years of war and prolonged experience looked like. Without even having to deploy a battle mask, T rolled across the ground and slashed his axe with such swift force, it made it almost shocking to believe that he was late middle-aged. With leaps and flips, the Matterburf swung his weapon from all angles in devastating strikebacks. The way he fought looked almost akin to a ballet dancer. Each swing was given with such elegant force that it appeared that no effort was given at all. As for Tiger, the best way they could describe her motion was like a ping-ponging ball, a bright shooting star that blasted and charged into one monster and then to the next, resulting in permanent ash-turned death. With a roll and slice, T decapitated a monster, but then sheathed his axe upon his back half of his body belt. Getting back to his feet, the Matterburf snarled and summoned bright blue energy to his hands. Using these, he began to punch with such force that the monsters exploded apart upon each impact, leaving several mouths on Void's side that dropped. "Holy shit!" Joey said, as they all began to approach and aid the two veterans. "I had no idea they were so strong," Jida stated, while Void had a tiny smile on his face. "Like I always say, never judge a book by its cover," Void replied, as the four of them leapt into the fight. "Hey, save some for us," asked the Spark, as he landed beside T with his Nova Blades at the ready. "Heh, don't worry, Novasun. I wouldn't take all the fun," T replied, as he too activated a pair of darker blue Nova Blades. Side by side, the two reflections sliced and diced through their enemies. With electricity mixed with pure blue matter essence, it created a spectacle that even the ameliorites had to admire. The two leaders, bouncing off each other's attacks, gave combined and self-contained blows from all sides. Together, they cut, punched, and even combined an energy pulse that left a wake of fallen enemies at their feet. On the other side of the battle, the two Jidas worked almost in a one-to-one unison. Using their flames, they both ignited and burned their enemies to a crisp. Reaching out in a combined assault, Tiger took Jida by the hand and flung the Cosmic Angel up and over to deliver a mighty kick upon a closing enemy. With Joey, Pawfnu, and Trixie joined in, the wave of monsters were swiftly dealt with, given as to how overpowered the group was when combined. "Ha! Not bad, young bloods," Tiger stated, while now looking towards the Novasuns, who were all heavily breathing from the fight. "Thanks. You too," Joby replied, with a shark-toothed smile, as both T and Void turned towards the others. "You five, go search for any civilians. We'll..." The two Voids both said and stopped in unison, before looking at one another in a surprised state. "Oh, sorry. You can..." Void said, leaving T to shake his head and raise his hands forwards. No. I said you could lead. It's all good," he replied, causing Void to awkwardly tilt and scratch the back of his head. "I mean, this is your home. I think you should," he said, while Tiger then spoke up. "Search for civilians while you two go on ahead. Got it," she said, before whistling to Trixie. "Be careful, you two," Jida replied, as her and the girls turned and ran into the smoke. "Alright, Novasun, let's figure out what the hell is going on here. It's been years since dark matter creatures attacked these lands," the Matterburf said, as he unhooked his axe and turned heel with Void in tow. Marching through the smoke, the two Voids maneuvered onwards side by side, one with their axe readied, and the other with their spear in hand. The two of them were both unsure of what to make of the situation, but they both knew they had to find out what had been causing it. Innocent lives were on the line. Nice spear, Nova-san. The Matterbirth quietly complimented as he gripped upon his orange burning blade. Oh, thanks. Nice axe. Void replied, as the world grew to suddenly be silent. Too silent. Oh boy, that's never a good sign. T stated, as both him and Void halted in their tracks. Getting back to back, the two star-crossed heroes examined their surroundings, knowing full well that something was about to drastically shift. And shift it did.
Fascinating. Truly fascinating.
A voice called from the smoke, causing both Void and T to look back forwards with stern stares. Who's there? The Matterbirth said, as the audible sounds of metal footsteps began to approach.
No one of much notice.
The voice came again, as the outline of a large and bulky figure began to emerge from the smoke.
I must say, this is quite the marvelous little world you have here. But it begs the question.
The voice went on, as the figure fully revealed itself in an almost zombified-like halt.
How willing would you both go in order to protect it?
With their eyes widening, both T and Void lowered their weapons in pure shock, for they set their sights upon another Void, the fallen Void, in all of his mismatched, battle-torn, and purple-glowing beauty. What on matter? T wordily asked as he gazed upon his twisted reflection that eyed him back with its one-eyed, glowing mask visor. Hi? Void greeted as he deactivated his mask and waved with a baffled stare. With a low grumble and primal groan, the larger Void began to maneuver its lanky self around, causing the other two to just stay afar and circle his movements. Out of all the things they had expected to encounter, this was the last they had expected to see. Although monstrous in design, the horn placements, the mask, the limb pieces, and even what was left of the crest all pointed to this being another reflection. The two of them could sense it. It was the same wavelength shared that T and Void noticed upon first meeting. This was another soul related to theirs. But it begged the question, what the hell was this reflection?
Of the many versions I have hunted, never have I encountered two in one place. Never with such nutritious scent of power.
The Shadow stated, leaving both Void and T a little toned back to his words. What? Hunted? The Spark asked, as the Shadow swayed his head back in an awkward angle.
Curious one, filled with the essence of a cosmic oddity,
said the monster, as T suddenly began to speak up. This feeling I'm sensing. You reek of the pure dark. You are imbalanced. Squinting his glowing purple eye screen, the Shadow tilted his head to the other side and went on with his ghastly and slimy words.
A Matterbirth variant. Rare but strong. So very strong. You two will provide for a long time.
The twisted Matterbirth reflection stated, as a hint of malice glinted off his cracked visor, that left Void and T on the edge of their feet.
When I'm done with you two, perhaps this realm will be desertful seconds. Yes.
Slowly emerging out of both the Shadow's arms came two mirror space blades, that hummed and vibrated within the light, smoky morning shade. What? Void asked as he gripped his spear alongside T, who were both still confused and worried as to what was happening. Hey, are you okay? What are you on about, man? T asked as sweat began to spill down his brow.
Sorry, old man. I'm not one to chat. Let's just cut to the chase.
Without warning, the fallen Void's body ignited red that led to a bright and hot beam blasting out of his visor. Reacting fast, Void jumped towards his right, whereas T instead went to his left. Tiquid! Arms! The Matterburf shouted, resulting in two red, cartoon-looking slime arms to shoot out from the canister at his side. Latching onto a nearby building, the spectral, goofy limbs yanked T out of the way, whereas Void was the one getting targeted and tracked by the beam. Running and flipping, Void dodged with a cold sweat, while T landed back to the ground. Seeing that his new friend was about to be fried, he retracted his red arms, readied his axe, and rushed the fallen monster. Hey, Cyclops! He shouted as the shadow ceased his blast and turned. Leaping upwards and swinging towards the monster's large head, T nearly gave a powerful blow, but the fallen Void quickly ducked out of the way. Landing back down, T swung again, leaving the shadow to lean backwards as a dodge. As T went full swing to this evasion, he quickly twisted the handle center and ignited his orange glow into a burning blue flame. Upon his third attempted swing, the shadow caught the axe by its upper handle, then promptly kicked T away while throwing his axe aside. Hey! Leave him alone! Void called as he then leapt upwards upon the shadow, ready to send his spear right through his abdomen. With lightning-fast speed, the fallen spark turned and sprouted two long arms and hands from his back, made entirely out of dark matter and mirror shards. Before Void realized what was happening, he was caught by the throat and swiftly disarmed, now being eyes the giant visor eye with the twisted version of himself. Tears Might! What the hell happened to you? The spark asked in a gasp as the matter limbs began to grasp and tighten harder around his neck. Without saying a word, the monster ignited his right hand into its matter-draining purple haze, prepared to absorb Void's life essence, as he had done with so many of the others. Before that could happen, however, two blue blaster bolts came and shot off the monster's back arms, resulting in Void to fall back to the ground, leaving the shadow to turn. Swinging down with his recovered axe, T went to strike upon his adversary once more, who quickly deflected with a raised arm blade. As they connected, the enemy pushed T back once more. Wasting no time to play with his food, the fallen Void slashed the Matterburf across the right half of his chest, leading him to shout and stumble over himself with a burning purple stained injury. Seeing this, Void's anger began to rise, resulting in his horns ignited with a pulse and stumbling the monster a few feet back. What the hell's your deal, man? Void called as he charged a punch and leapt upwards, striking the monster into a rolling skid. After flailing across the ground, the fallen Matterburf being flipped himself right back up in a readied stance, while T gripped his wound while sweating in agony, having not been used to getting slashed in oh so long. Rushing forwards, Void retracted his spear and activated his own battle axe, one that was now brimming with electrified power. Swinging up and over his head, he clashed down upon his Darker Reflections blade with a glowing strike. Rearing back around with his other hand, Void attempted to then punch his enemy, but the blow was caught in the shadow's free hand, turning the strike into a hard metal smashing headbutt into the good spark. Stumbling back forward, Void attempted to clash again, but was suddenly disarmed by a hard, back-flipping kick from the monster. Dropping his weapon and falling down, Void landed hard at T's side, who was weakly trying to self-heal from his wound. Damn, he's good, the Matterburf said, as their darker counterparts slowly began marching towards them. You sure he's one of us? Void asked. How can that even be? How How could it actually be a reflection? He continued to ask as they both heard a low heartbeat emanating from the spark's faint red glowing chest. Not sure, Nova-san. That's the scary thing about finding reflections. You never know who you'll encounter. He replied as the monster grew closer and closer. I guess? But wait, how did he even find us? Why is he trying to hunt us? Void rambled as he tried to stand. There's always a time and place for questions, kid. Now is not the time nor the place. He replied as the monster got ready to stab down, but was suddenly knocked backwards by a blast of combined fire and spectral energy. Turning their heads, the two voids looked on in sudden relief as Jida, Tiger, Joby, Pofnu, alongside Trixie, as well as a few of Salvaheim's warriors and guards appeared to their aid. As they glared forwards, the four girls' angered and protective faces suddenly fell to shock upon realizing what they were looking at. What the? Jida gasped as the fallen void slowly stood back to his feet, now having his mask blown off from the blast. Slowly looking up, a low saturated, pink-skinned, glowing, purple-scarred face with bright white lavender eyes glared towards what was essentially a rescue party. His skin was sick-looking, scarred, nearly one-to-one like T, having the same slash over his right eye and everything. Snarling with a set of surprisingly white teeth, the dark reflection reached down and recovered his mask. Sealing the rotted piece of metal back over his face, its screen ignited back to life with its glowing purple eye that now blankly stared towards the group. It is the only noise the monster made, before simply turning, slashing a glass shard portal open, and just quietly leaving. That was it. No curses, no retorts, no "I'll get you next times." Just an eerie and silent departure that left everyone silent and in scared awe. What the Who the hell was that? Joby asked, as everyone suddenly took notice and ran to the two voids' aid. That was a good question, they both thought, while sitting upon the dirt. Who, in Matira's name, did they just fight?